From time to time, topics pop up that we have plans for a full redirect episode, but that our audience also deserves a quicker heads up, so to speak. With that in mind, we're introducing a Cliff's Notes version of these topics to be followed by a redirect episode. We're calling these BTW with BlackTruck Media and Marketing, as in, oh, by the way. We promise to be a brief pit stop in your day, just about 10 minutes, and then we'll be gone so that you can move forward with quick takes and confidence in the digital space. We'll be back later to deliver all the details you crave from our team.
Welcome to BTW with BTM. I'm Jason Dodge, founder and CEO of BlackTruck Media and Marketing. On this episode, we're going to break down the latest algorithm updates to come from Google. Ironically, it's known as the Google Helpful Content Update. A little bit of background on this update and what some in the industry might define as one of the most important algorithm updates to happen in a few years, kind of since Panda. Google's Helpful Content Update, which was announced this last week, could start to really kind of call the content herd, if you will, of what shows up in the SERPs. And truthfully, here at BlackTruck, we're definitely here for it, but we also might have a little bit of a unique approach when it comes to search and content development that perhaps places us a little bit ahead of the curve. And I know there's a bunch of other agencies and other thought leaders in the space that think similarly, but simply put, Google's really getting tired of expensing their bandwidth on content that isn't getting to what and why the user is searching, right? We've talked about, at least at great length here at BlackTruck, that kind of more or less the search engines have become a little bit of a disappointing place as it relates to the results that you're getting. So what is the Google Helpful Content Update? So first things first, let's get this out of the way. It is not a core algorithm update. Google's come right out and said that, and fully disclosed that this update aims at helping, and I'm reading this verbatim, it helps them tackle content that seems to have been primarily created for ranking well in search engines rather than to help or inform people. And okay, while that's definitely not uncommon of a practice to develop content that's going to rank well in search, after all, we're search engine optimization specialists for a reason, but it might have a bit more of a drastic impact on others when it comes to crafting content strategies, both now and moving forward as we start to see this roll out in the next couple of weeks. So what about the industries that will be impacted maybe the most by the content update by Google? I think following similar trends to many of the major algorithm updates in the recent years by the search giant, Google's definitely outlined that, again, while it's targeting content that is unoriginal and of air quotes low quality, it should help those within the entertainment space, online education, shopping, and those involved with tech-related content. So these segments alone, we can probably all agree that they're still pretty vague, and perhaps a better breakdown of those would be helpful. So if we look at the entertainment industry, and let's kind of walk through some different scenarios and different segments within each one of these industries, it might be helpful. So within the entertainment industry, Google highlights specifically the movie industry and uses that as an example. So think about theaters and film studios. So rather than aggregator sites that just publish kind of when and where the film is to be shown, how about the studios maybe receiving more credit and the background on the film? So think of things like IMDb and similar type sites. Now, what about live performances and theater arts, theatrical type performances, like your local performing arts groups, on up to Broadway performances? Perhaps these could all benefit from this type of an update, or perhaps the artist and the playwright, giving them more credit versus what I dub aggregator sites. And then you also get into the publishers. So those are, the journalists and the publishing outlets that follow the movie, film, entertainment industry very closely and write about it will most likely need to craft more of an authentic approach versus what I say is regurgitating the same pressers that they have for years. No offense to journalism, but come on, we can do better than this. Switch gears and talk about those in the online education space. This is an area that Google has been extremely vague about, but I think our experience has proven that this space continues to evolve, and especially since the pandemic started and distance learning continues to increase and become a normal everyday occurrence for us for everyday life. This is an area that they definitely are seeing some significant shifts. So let's break it down into two different segments within education. You have public and private universities and in K through 12 schools. So public and private universities. So these sources could actually, I think, come out a bit more on top. So as the industry really over the last few years weeded out a number of those, what we might dub fly-by-night colleges, I envision that a lot of your major universities and colleges become much more credible sources for online education, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. Now, the K-12 schools, interestingly enough, definitely since the start of the pandemic, the sources for the online education component have grown exponentially. So that's the growth of distance learning, resources available for teaching, whether that's in school or homeschooling. Those areas have started to continue to shift and evolve, but you have to watch it because it seemed like anybody with a blog could spool up content, or anybody with a product in the space could spool up content around resources and learning in the e-learning space or the edtech space and rank well. And I think Google has caught on to that as the users have become a little bit disappointed. Now, furthering this discussion, let's look at online shopping. So retail. Commerce in general has definitely been a target of Google for some time now in their quest to continue to go after Amazon for a slice of the retail pie. This shouldn't be a shock to anybody. So retailers and aggregator sites are two different areas I want to talk about here, and I'll help define those. Retailers, pretty obvious, right? Your major retailers of the world. The focus has been in the past few years has been centered around reviews. And you can really anticipate more credible and in-depth reviews to be a major importance in the coming months, especially as it pertains to the helpful content update, because a review just saying, yeah, this is a good product, or no, this was a terrible product, that information needs to be weeded out a little bit more to be more applicable, how you used it, what worked, what didn't work, those types of things. For aggregator sites, such as think of publishers, bloggers, that type of thing, that might not have anything to do with a particular industry, let's say. An example that's been used quite often in the industry is, why is it that somebody like a Forbes or a CNET, as a publication that's geared towards wealth and finance, rank for top tires in name the year, in 2022, in 2021, top tires for SUVs, CNET ranks. Like, why is it that a tech blogger is ranking for those types of things? Those are closely related to having a high commercial intent for somebody who's researching what they want to buy. Why would I trust a CNET? Why would I trust a Forbes or anything like that? I think that's a little bit misleading content based on the subject matter and who they typically serve. Then we get into and kind of close things out with tech-related content. And this has publishers written all over it, in my opinion. And that's a strong opinion, that perhaps it ties well into the above-mentioned review type. So let's just break it down to tech outlets. So whether that's CNET, whether it's TechCrunch, you name it, do they stay in their lane? And do they cover more of their own audience's content? So the content that their typical audience is expecting to read? Or do they continue to kind of push those boundaries on content into the areas that's not anywhere closely related to what it is that they do? So how should you react, or how should people prepare, marketers prepare for Google's helpful content update? We've always believed, I suppose, here in developing genuine content for your audience. And keep it in mind, content marketing, SEO, digital marketing, etc. should have never been about writing for the algorithm. Let's just get that clear. Again, and I can say that very confidently as the leader of an SEO team. So while some degree of the quote-unquote system should go into crafting said content, it's not the only thing, and it's never been the only thing, and it's been that way for years. But unfortunately, a lot of things slip through the cracks. So start by asking yourself these questions. Does my content come off as even being credible to my audience? Right? Is it credible? Am I using language that they're understanding, right? So talking with me, not talking at me. Does my content feel over-optimized, or is it even related to the industry and the business types that we actually serve? So are we using every single header opportunity to name the business or the type of industry that it pertains to? And then taking a step even further and looking at it in your content generation plan and in your content strategies, have you even actually interviewed and talked to customers? So have I interviewed? Have I talked to customers? Am I meeting with my sales reps, with my sales teams? And do I actually have a really good understanding about what it is they do, who they serve, and what their biggest challenges are, right? So do we really understand the people that we are trying to communicate with first and foremost? So while, we welcome certainly here the most recent updates by Google, I'll leave you in closing with this question that you should be asking yourself at every step of your content process. Are we generating content and optimizing content for people, for the human? Or are you generating the content for the search engine, right? So keep that in mind. Do I understand my audience? Am I writing the content that they want to read that's going to be very helpful to them? Because there's definitely a way in which to blend those two together, to understand where the search volume is, to understand what the intent is behind those searches and that searcher's query, and also be able to develop the content that is absolutely helpful for them. So keep those things in mind, and we'll continue to update you on these updates as they roll out. And until next time, good luck.